I'm going to ruin the web for you. Basically, everything through your web browser or through an app has design behind it, some principles, some invisible guides that help designers and developers make the decisions that they need to make to help you accomplish a task or derive some value from it. These are going to be adventures centering around LinkedIn. If you're not familiar, it's a social network turned professional website that allows you to have basically a resume and connections. We're going to be using those examples, taking screenshots of that website and that app to leverage understanding and awareness over the design principles behind it, and then we're going to move through HTML and CSS to actually implement. That means create through code what those things do. And we're starting with rule of thirds. This is something that you'll see everywhere. You're seeing right now in this video, I'm in the middle third. This over here is 1/3, over here is another third. I've even heard this called like the golden rule in design. To me, it's one of the most fundamental design principles that helps you make something look professional. These are rules that if you follow, it's what makes something look amateur or look professional. I'm a firm believer in following the rules so that you understand them, and then you can start to break them, because when you break them and understand them and have experience with them, you can start to find your own voice in them. When I first learned principles like this in college, I rebelled against it. I thought, like, I'd been using Photoshop for years, it's so easy to make something look cool. And I was ripped apart. Long story short, didn't know what the hell I was doing. We're going to dive through looking at this real design, or I found that beginning somewhere that somebody can see, a more tangible, familiar thing, allows us to leverage these more complex principles. We're going to start with the rule of thirds. Here's the dashboard when I log into LinkedIn. There's an interesting thing happening here. 1, 2, 3. We have 2/3 of the page over here and 1/3 of the page here. This is a very common layout grid system. It's being able to put what we deem as the quote-unquote most important stuff in the top left in 2/3 of the page, and then we'll usually have this bar on the side that's mostly advertisements or things like utility functions. What I want to focus on, though, are two things inside of this design. Not just the rule of thirds, but the nav bar up here, and a feed item is what I'm going to call this. So a huge part of looking at designs and translating them into code is starting to empower others with nouns or adjectives for what we're trying to create. So I'm going to call this a newsfeed item, and this a nav bar. So let's look at the nav bar. We have in the very top left a logo. This is a super common pattern for any application to have an escape hatch that'll allow us to always go home or always go to the dashboard. There's usually a search bar and then main navigation or global nav. Top it all off, in the top right corner, we'll have things like utility features or upsales. When we look at the newsfeed item, there's something very interesting. It's reusing the top left as why it's important to me, which is one of the other people I'm connected with in the network did something. And then we have an author, we have the author's name, we have information about the author. Here's the text that the author wrote, and then an image of whatever they linked to, followed by some more information here and some more information here. This is what I see when I look at web design. It's a bunch of boxes, some squiggly lines for text, links, and patterns like search bar, global nav, nav bar, coming up with concepts for these containers so that I can start to understand the patterns happening here. When we use the same design patterns that other websites use, it's easier for a person visiting our site to use it. So since those design patterns are used a lot, we're going to be able to create certain pieces of code that we can actually reuse as we move forward. Let's look at some design patterns happening on this website. We have a global nav bar, and in the top left, we have an escape hatch or their logo. We always know where we're going to go when we click that. And we have in the top right, of course, some utility features. We can log in, that's a utility. If I were to break this up into thirds, it'd be something like this. So even though they're not following the 2/3, 1/3 rule, it's probably by design. They're saying we have one half and another half because there's two distinct things they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to say that we need to sell what we're trying to do, and if you're now bought into it, the other most important thing is to sign up. And then inside of this sign up is a heading. So we've got some text here, some subline text here, and then some form design. So if you were to start up here and scan the page like this, it reads very similarly to LinkedIn. Start up here, read to the bottom. Most important escape hatch, most important information, usually in the top left. I recognize it's me, followed by the biggest thing on the page is the value I'm getting. So if I go back to Facebook, I've got the escape hatch in the top left. I know where I am. Don't need any more information because I'm not logged in. Then I have two pieces of content. They're both equally important, so they follow through with that with 50-50 design.